Today, we're diving into one of the most famous and honestly mind-bending thought experiments in all of Western philosophy, Plato's Allegory of the Cave. It's a story that kicks off with a massive question. What if everything you thought was real wasn't? What if your whole life was just, well, a shadow of the actual truth? So, this story comes from Plato, but he tells it through his mentor, the one and only Socrates. And right from the get-go, Socrates tells us he's not just spinning a yarn. He's building what he calls a figure, a powerful image designed to make us really think about reality, what we can know, and what it actually means to be enlightened. All right, so let's get into it. Socrates asks us to start where the story does, deep inside this cave. And this cave, it's meant to be the world that most of us see and live in every single day. So picture this, a huge cavern, deep underground. There's an opening way, way up at the top that leads to the light. But the people inside are so far down, they're completely in the dark. And this isn't some temporary campsite for them. This cave is their entire world. It's all they know. Now, the people living here, they're prisoners. And it gets worse. They've been chained up like this since they were kids, with shackles around their legs and their necks. And that since childhood part is absolutely critical, because it means they've never, ever known anything else. And these chains are no joke. They're so restrictive that the prisoners are totally locked in place. They can only look forward at one thing, the flat wall of the cave right in front of them. They can't turn their heads to the left or the right. They can't even look at the person chained up next to them. Their entire field of vision is just that wall. So, what are they staring at? Behind them, there's a big fire burning. And between that fire and the prisoners, there's a low wall, kind of like a puppet theater screen. People walk along this path, holding up puppets, statues of animals, all sorts of things. The fire then casts the shadows of these objects onto the wall that the prisoners are forced to watch, day in and day out. Okay, and here is the absolute core of their reality. For these prisoners, those flickering shadows on the wall, they aren't like reality. They are reality. They have absolutely no other point of reference. So they give the shadows names, they talk about their movements, and they believe with all their hearts that this shadow play is the whole truth and nothing but the truth. But then, Plato throws a wrench in the works. He says, okay, imagine one of these prisoners is suddenly freed. Just like that, and he's forced to turn around. This is the moment it all changes, and the painful journey towards real knowledge begins. You'd think being freed would feel amazing, right? Nope. The first thing he feels is pain. The bright light from the fire, something he's never seen directly, is agonizing. It hurts his eyes. He's completely confused. When someone points to the actual objects, the puppets that made the shadows, he doesn't believe them. He thinks the shadows he grew up with were way more real than these things. And he doesn't just happily skip out of the cave either. Socrates describes him being literally dragged up this steep, rocky path against his will. It's a brilliant way to show that finding the truth isn't easy. It's a struggle. It hurts. It's confusing. And sometimes you have to be forced out of what's comfortable. When he finally gets outside, he's blinded by the sunlight. He can't see a thing. So his adjustment has to happen in stages. First, all he can handle is looking at shadows on the ground. Then, maybe he can see reflections in a pool of water. After a while, he's able to look at the real things, trees, flowers, people. Eventually, he can look up at the moon and the stars at night. And only after all of that can he finally look directly at the sun. And when he sees the sun, it's like a lightning bolt of understanding. He finally gets it. He realizes the sun is what makes the seasons, the years, everything. It's the source of everything he can now see. And, in a weird way, he realizes it was even the ultimate cause of the shadows he used to watch back in the cave. So he's seen the truth. He understands how the world really works. But then he thinks about his friends, the other prisoners, still chained up in the dark. He feels sorry for them, and he makes a choice. He has to go back down. And this is such a clever point from Socrates. He says our minds can get confused in two totally opposite ways, going from dark to light and going from light back into darkness. When the prisoner goes back into the cave, his eyes, which are now used to the bright sun, are totally useless in the dim light. He can't see a thing. So his old friends see him stumbling around, trying to talk about the shadows on the wall and just failing miserably. Do they think he's enlightened? No way. They think he's an idiot. They literally say that the journey up ruined his eyesight. And they come to a terrifying conclusion. The outside world is dangerous, and if anyone ever tried to free them and drag them up into that light, they would kill him on the spot. So you hear all that, and you're thinking, okay, what's the point? Well, Socrates explains that this isn't really a story about caves and prisoners. The whole thing is an allegory. It's a symbol for the journey our own souls take from ignorance to understanding. So let's break down what it all means. That dark cave, the prison, that represents our everyday world, the physical reality we perceive with our senses. That tough climb out of the cave, that's the soul's journey into the world of intellect, the world of ideas, logic, and pure reason. And the sun, the source of all light and life, for Plato, that's the ultimate idea, the form of the good, which is the source of all truth, beauty, and knowledge. And this leads to a pretty radical take on what education is. Plato says, education is not about a teacher just cramming information into an empty head, like trying to put sight into blind eyes. No, he says the ability to learn, the eye of the soul, is already inside every one of us. The whole art of education is just turning that eye in the right direction, pointing it away from the shadows and towards the light of truth. Now, we get to the great paradox of the whole story. The people who have actually made it out of the cave and seen the truth, the philosophers, they have zero desire to go back down. Why would they? They'd rather stay up in the world of pure thought. But Plato says they must be forced to go back. They have a duty to go back down, to govern, and to try and help others see. And this leaves us with the final, nagging question that Socrates just leaves hanging in the air. Is that fair? Is it just to force these enlightened people to return to the darkness, to deal with all the petty squabbles of the cave, to make them live a worse life when they could have a better one? Plato's answer is that a just society cares about the good of everyone, not just the happiness of one group. But the question itself really makes you wonder, what responsibility comes with knowing the truth?